Hello and welcome to this show brought to you by AAF in association with Pharma. My name is Mukbil Ahmed. I'm the editor at CIO and CISO. The topic for today's discussion is From Infrastructure to Impact, Rethinking Data Centers. Now, before we move ahead with the discussions, let me add some context to it. Well, AI is the flavor of the season, and there is no discussion which can evade the mention of this very important subject. Now, there are other similar technologies which have caught the fancy of people at large, for example, IoT, cloud computing, but few would realize the importance or the significance of the backbone of all these technologies and what rests there. That is data centers and how crucial they are to the operations of these extremely vital technologies. So, today we are going to discuss about how do you keep running healthy and extremely efficient data center operations and the role that indoor air quality plays in that. Now it is my extremely great fortune to invite two very prominent and senior technologists in our midst. It is my great pleasure to introduce Girish Dhavale, Head of Operations, Nxtra by Airtel, and Deepak Nanaware, Head Engineering and Marketing, Middle East and India, AAF. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show. I hope you're having a great day.
Thank you very much.
So, Deepak, going to you first, as I also spoke about and alluded to it during my initial remark, data centers have become mission critical as far as digitalization is concerned. What is the exact role that IAQ plays in that?
See, data centers, if you see over the last 20, 25, 30 years, has been growing across the geopolitical regions. And all the data, whatever we are using in your phones, laptops, whatever apps we are using, that goes back into this for the processing. So, previously, only the temperature and humidity was the concern for the data centers to run efficiently and smoothly. But now it is expanding into different geographical regions because of the government norms, because of the necessity for the faster data processing. So this has impacted on the design parameters for the data centers. Suppose, for example, when you talk about NCR, which is always in the headlines for the pollution levels, now you imagine how the data center works into that particular locations. So IAQ is very important to keep this server or these heat machines running continuously and supporting us with all the data what we need on our mobiles.
Excellent. So Deepak says that IAQ is very important. Going to you, Girish. Why is IAQ such an important factor as far as data center design and operations are concerned?
Oh, very good question. So, see, when we talk about the data center data processing, it is done by the multiple level of servers and the network architecture which is built inside. Now, all those servers and the network architecture is having a multiple PCBs, and those PCBs are having a content of silver, copper. Okay. Now, if the air quality inside the data center, which we called as a white tile area, is not maintained properly, then the sulfides and chlorides in that air react with those silver and copper components, and which causes the failure of those PCBs, and that is especially called as a electronic corrosion. So, to tell you the exact impact of that, today almost 27 to 28% of the hardware failure is contributed to the electronic corrosion, which can be reduced, can be nullified by having a proper indoor air quality monitoring as well as the governance and the controls on that, where these air filters actually gives you a relief from such failures.
Wonderful. So would you like to elaborate on whether this factor can be very crucial as far as reliability of data center operations are concerned?
Exactly. So what is meant by the reliability of data centers is your customers, end customers, had storing the data. Okay, those data might be related to your financial transaction, might be related to the entertainment industry, might be related to your enterprise or industries related. Now, this data becomes very crucial for any organization to work seamlessly without any interruption. Now, if any interruption happens only because of this air quality, because of this hardware failure, then you need to avoid this by introducing this air quality monitoring as well as control right from the design and in the operations.
Correct. So what you are exactly saying is that IAQ could contribute to interruptions or a loss of functioning in the operations of a data center. Going to you, Deepak, how do you really balance energy efficiency with air quality optimization?
Girish, you rightly mentioned, when you are designing the facility, at that time, if you take this into consideration, if you do the air quality analysis before going into the construction, so that it gives you the right perspective where I should be deploying the system to take care of my precious hardware inside. Because if you do at the design stage, you may be spending 1x. If you do it after the installation, you may be spending 2x, not only on the capex but only on the opex also. So design basis where you get advantage to design the right system which can be cost effective in the long run and which can protect your systems very effectively compared to going for the retrofit solutions.
Correct. Great 2 points coming from you. One is that enterprises need to take a proactive approach towards this, and that it can lead to long-term efficiencies as far as data centers are concerned. So, sticking on to you, Deepak, what do you think are some of the most prominent innovations that we see in the air filtration and contamination control domain and space?
There are a lot of things happening. So whenever I work with the end users or the consultants, so I give them a complete picture that if you go with system A, where you have a higher capex as well as higher opex, because you don't want to change the filters on a regular basis. The system B, which is lower capex, lower opex, but you have to change the filters, say at a regular interval. So then user has to decide whether he has to spend money more at the day one or he has to spend on a regular intervals. That is one thing. Secondly, all the hardwares are absorbing the electrical energy and generating the heat energy. There is no other energy used or translated into these data centers. So to remove this heat effectively, you are using very high sensible heat load or heat removing cooling machines. And then there are multiple machines like room cooling, then complete fan wall units, or now people are going into liquid cooling. But in all the cases, you have one factor, that is scaling, which is causing on the cooling coils or maybe into the rooms. So that can be removed by, there are energy efficient filters available, which is used by the cooling OEMs across the world, but not in India.
As Deepak was mentioning, that IAQ has a very important role to play as far as sustainable and efficient data center operations are concerned. Do you think that IAQ will become a standard benchmark as far as data centers are concerned?
Yeah, definitely. See, basically, let me give you a little perspective to the viewers what IAQ means for the data center. IAQ is not only limited to the dust content inside the air. Okay, it also talks about the chemical compositions and unwanted gases which are available in the air inside the data center, which is harmful for the electronic corrosion. Okay, now when we talk about the reliability, sustainability, and the operation excellence of the data centers, which is required for the end customers, then definitely controlling these three parameters. One is your dust level should be low because it impacts the cooling of that heat generating all the elements inside the server. Second thing, the sulfides and chloride should be at the G1 and A1 level as per ASHRAE guidelines, because then and then only the electronic corrosion can be restricted. Now, if this is an end requirement for every customers and the data center player, then it should be a part of the design, it should be part of the operation. So when you start a data center designing, you should always maintain the air filters according to the requirement of the environment.
Absolutely. Do you think IAQ will redefine data center performance in the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
Definitely. See, basically, there are two bodies who are working on that. One is ASHRAE and another is ISHRAE. ASHRAE talks about the American standards and ISHRAE talks about the Indian standards. Now, those both are having a very clear defined guidelines about right from the dust content to the chemical or the hazardous chemicals availability in the air. Now, these standards are slowly becoming more and more stringent, and the customers, the end customers who are hosting their servers, hardware inside the data center is asking a regular reports from the data center players every monthly to monitor that air quality and submit the report to give them the confidence that their servers and hardwares are placed in a environment which is not harmful. Okay, so definitely this IAQ is going to become one of the critical parameters for every end customer as well as the data center players. And in next 3 to 5 years, as Deepak has rightly mentioned, when the technology is evolving, from the standard design we are going to artificial intelligence. From 10 kilowatt rack, we are going to 120 kilowatt rack. So heat density is increasing. When the heat density is increasing, definitely the impact of those hazardous chemicals inside the air, the impact will also get accelerated. So to avoid that, okay, these standards are definitely in 3 to 5 years will become more stringent, and it will become the base minimum requirement for any data center operation.
Great point. So he's saying that the standards are going to become increasingly stringent as we move forward. Deepak, your views on the entire thing, how it can evolve into a standard benchmark as far as data center evaluations are concerned in the next few years.
Before going ahead, maybe I will go a little bit back around, say, 40 years ago, when this standard started, specifically for the oil and gas applications. So it started as ISA 71.04, where, as you mentioned, the G1, G2, G3, GX class were started. That is nothing but the level of corrosion on the copper and silver films. Okay, so earlier it started with copper, then in the revision it added silver also, and then this was the problem of oil and gas because they were using, or they are cracking the crude oil and generating hydrocarbons, which was affecting, like as you mentioned, about SOx and NOx. Data centers doesn't generate any hydrocarbons, and when it started from the West, US and Europe, they were having the clean environment. When we expanded into India, when we came to Mumbai, when we came to NCR region, when we came to Chennai, the particular atmospheric conditions, be it about the dumping ground or the reclaim ground, the nearby creek area or the polluted water body in NCR or the polluted lakes in Bangalore, which all generated or became the source of generating the H2S or SOx, which is a very high corrosive substances specifically for the data centers. Then the growing traffic for generating SOx, NOx, higher ambient temperatures adding to the ozone level. So these all gases which are listed there are harmful for the corrosion control. So based on that, in 2011, when ASHRAE realized that, they worked with the hardware OEMs like the giants, and then they redefined the temperature range, humidity range, and they added about what should be the filtration level for the recirculation, what should be the filtration level for the fresh air, and what should be the reactivity level for the copper and silver. And then the hardware guys started regretting the warranties if you are not maintaining these conditions inside your facility, and that is pushing back on the data center operators to have these systems in place so that the end users are relaxed about that. IAQ is very good inside the premises where I am hosting my servers, where I am hosting the data for my customers and users. So this is evolving. As you mentioned, AI, now we heard in past when people started generating images, the servers were started melting and all, it is generating a lot of heat. So to remove this heat effectively, we have to maintain that indoor air quality better. And as the chips are getting smaller and smaller, earlier we used to have this size of a room for a computer. Now, as you mentioned, we can have almost around 200 to 500 kilowatt of load into this room itself. Now you imagine the amount of heat generated and how we should hardware has become smaller. So to protect that hardware, the requirements are getting more and more stronger, so that you have to, or you will not be surprised going forward, they will ask you a clean room to host the data centers to avoid the small particles or the gases.
True, true. So this brings us to the end of this discussion, where we spoke about a range of issues. First of all, starting from the fact that data centers form the most crucial part of the digitalization of today's day and age, when we are talking about AI, IoT, cloud, and other technologies. And what are the important innovations happening in the field of indoor air quality, which plays such a very crucial role in the functioning of the operations of a data center. And as these two gentlemen pointed out, for enterprises, it's best to take a very proactive approach as far as the health and maintenance of your data center operations are concerned. And if you really want them to aid your journey of digitalization, you will have to take care of the indoor air quality. So with this, we come to the end of this discussion. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you.